The legend materializes. Captain Ilara Chen stood on the bridge of the United Earth ship Defiant, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The holographic projection showed exactly what she feared. 12 Krelian warships approaching the Arcturus colony, their formation tight and disciplined. Against them stood only 3 Earth vessels: her Defiant, the aging cruiser Intrepid, and the patrol ship Vigilant. "Status report," she demanded, her voice steady despite the knot tightening in her stomach. Lieutenant Marcus Rivera glanced up from his console. "Colony shields at maximum capacity. The Intrepid is taking up position at the jump point, and the Vigilant is establishing orbit around the moon." "But Captain," he hesitated. "Long-range scans show 3 more Krelian ships emerging from FTL at the edge of the system." Ilara closed her eyes briefly. 15 against 3. Those weren't odds. They were a death sentence. "Open a channel to Governor Harlow," she ordered. The weathered face of the colony's leader appeared on screen. His eyes already held the resignation that Ilara refused to accept. "Captain Chen," he nodded, "I take it the situation is as bad as we feared." "Worse, Governor. Evacuation protocols need to be initiated immediately. Get your people to the shelters and prepare for potential ground combat." The governor's jaw tightened. "Captain, we have 8,000 colonists, including 1,500 children. The shelters won't hold everyone. Then prioritize the children and medical personnel. We'll buy you as much time as we can." When the transmission ended, the bridge fell silent. Ilara could feel the weight of her crew's unspoken question. "How do we win this?" Lieutenant Commander Kazuki Tanaka, her tactical officer, finally voiced what everyone was thinking. "Captain, requesting permission to speak freely." "Always, Kazuki. Even with our new shields and weapons systems, we're outnumbered 5 to 1. The Intrepid's propulsion system is barely functional, and the Vigilant wasn't designed for frontline combat." He lowered his voice. "Is it time to consider the last resort protocol?" Ilara glanced around to ensure no junior officers were within earshot. "You mean Project Wraith?" Tanaka nodded. 6 months ago, in a classified briefing that only ship captains and above were privy to, Ilara had learned of something that sounded more like propaganda than reality. A ship unlike any other in the fleet, a vessel so advanced that it defied conventional physics. The officers called it the Ghost Ship because of its supposed ability to appear and disappear without warning. According to the briefing, this ship had intervened in several battles where Earth forces were on the brink of defeat. It would appear, devastate the enemy, and vanish before clear images could be captured or communication established. Most captains dismissed it as psychological warfare, a story concocted to boost morale. But Ilara had seen the grainy footage, the intercepted Krelian communications expressing fear of a human phantom vessel. And she had received a small quantum communicator with strict instructions: use it only in the most dire circumstances. "The existence of Project Wraith is still classified, Commander," she said quietly, "and there's no guarantee they would respond, or even that they exist at all. With respect, Captain, if not now, when?" Before she could answer, the ship's eye spoke. "Captain, the Krelian fleet has increased speed. Estimated time to weapons range, 7 minutes. Ilara straightened her uniform. "Battle stations. All hands prepare for combat. Lieutenant Rivera, coordinate with the Intrepid and Vigilant. We'll execute Maneuver Theta 6. As her crew rushed to their positions, Ilara reached into her pocket and felt the small quantum communicator. "Not yet," she thought. "I need to be sure this isn't just a legend." The first volley from the Krelian ships came exactly as predicted. The Defiant shuddered as energy blasts impacted against its shields. "Shields holding at 82%, reported Rivera. "Returning fire." On the main view screen, Ilara watched as the Defiant's advanced railguns launched hypervelocity projectiles at the lead Krelian ship. The impacts were visible, bright flashes against the enemy's barriers, but not enough to penetrate. "The Vigilant is taking heavy fire," Tanaka called out. "Their shields are failing." Divert course to provide cover, Ilara ordered, and target the Kralian vessel attacking them. The Defiant surged forward, its engines straining as it positioned itself between the Vigilant and its attacker. The ship trembled violently as it absorbed fire meant for the smaller vessel. Direct hit to our port nacelle, Rivera reported, his voice rising. Shields down to 47%. We can't take much more of this, Captain. 3 more Kralian ships broke from their formation, surrounding the Defiant in a pincer movement. Energy beams lanced out, striking the Earth ship from multiple angles simultaneously. Hull breach on Deck 3. Someone shouted. Emergency bulkheads engage. Ilara gripped her command chair as the ship lurched sideways. The lights flickered, and for a moment, only emergency power illuminated the bridge. Status of the Intrepid, she demanded. Tanaka's face was grim. Critical damage. They're venting atmosphere from multiple sections. Ilara made her decision. She pulled out the quantum communicator, a device no larger than her thumb, and pressed its single button. A soft blue light pulsed in acknowledgement. "What now?" asked Tanaka. "Now we keep fighting," she replied, "and hope that legends sometimes come true." 2 more brutal minutes passed. The Vigilant had gone silent, drifting powerless. The Intrepid continued firing, but its weapons were barely scratching the Kralian shields. The Defiant itself was in no better condition, shields failing, multiple systems offline. "Captain, we have a new contact," Rivera suddenly called out, his voice filled with confusion. "Massive energy signature. I've never seen readings like this." "Kralian reinforcements?" Ilara asked, her heart sinking. "No, I don't know what it is. The configuration doesn't match any known vessel." The tactical display showed a new object materializing near the edge of the battlefield. Not emerging from FTL or a jump point, just appearing, as if it had been there all along but somehow unseen. "On screen," Ilara ordered. The view screen shifted, and collective gasps filled the bridge. The ship was enormous, at least twice the length of the largest Earth dreadnought. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, with strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid. No visible weapon mounts, no conventional engine nacelles, just a sleek, predatory shape that exuded power and menace. "It's not broadcasting any identification," Rivera reported. "But, Captain, it's moving toward the Kralian fleet." The mysterious vessel accelerated with impossible grace for something so large, closing the distance to the nearest Kralian ships in seconds rather than minutes. "All Kralian vessels are breaking formation," Tanaka reported, excitement creeping into his voice. "They're targeting the unknown ship." The lead Kralian cruiser fired a full barrage at the newcomer. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space, and then simply vanished before making contact, as if absorbed by an invisible barrier. "My God," whispered Tanaka. "What kind of shielding is that?" The answer came in the form of action rather than words. The mysterious ship pulsed with blue-white energy, not from any visible weapons array, but from its entire hull simultaneously. Beams of the same energy lanced out, striking 3 Kralian ships at once. Their shields flared briefly, then collapsed completely, followed immediately by catastrophic hull breaches. All 3 exploded in silent, brilliant fireballs. The bridge of the Defiant fell completely silent as the crew watched in awe. 3 more Kralian vessels destroyed, Rivera finally reported, his voice barely above a whisper. They just disintegrated. The remaining Kralian ships began to scatter, firing desperately as they retreated. Their weapons continued to disappear harmlessly against whatever defense the mystery ship employed. "Captain," Rivera called out, "we're being hailed by the unknown vessel." Ilara exchanged glances with Tanaka. "On screen," she ordered. The view screen changed to show a man in a uniform unlike any in the Earth fleet, black with subtle silver geometric patterns that echoed the ship's hull design. He appeared to be in his 40s, with close-cropped gray hair and piercing blue eyes. No rank insignia was visible. "Captain Chen of the UES Defiant," the man said, his voice deep and measured. "I'm Commander Nathaniel Reeves of the Earth vessel Spectre. Sorry, we cut it rather close. Calculating precise emergence points takes time." Ilara found herself momentarily speechless before recovering her composure. "Commander Reeves, your timing is impeccable. But I've never heard of a ship called Spectre in the Earth Fleet." A slight smile crossed Reeves' face. "That's by design, Captain. We'll have time for explanations later. For now, please hold position. We'll clean up the remaining hostiles and then send a medical team to assist with your wounded." As if to punctuate his words, the Spectre unleashed another barrage of energy, destroying 2 more Krelian ships that had regrouped for a desperate attack. The remaining enemy vessels abruptly accelerated to maximum speed, fleeing toward the jump point. "Let them go," Reeves ordered someone off-screen. "Track their vector, but don't pursue." He turned back to Ilara. "Captain, I'm sending a shuttle with medical personnel and engineers to assist with emergency repairs. I'd also appreciate it if you would join me aboard the Spectre once your ship is stabilized. There are matters we need to discuss." "Understood, Commander. And thank you." As the transmission ended, Ilara turned to find her entire bridge crew staring at her. "Captain," Tanaka said slowly, "was that?" "Yes," she replied, finally allowing herself a small smile of relief. "It seems the ghost ship is real after all." The truth behind the legend. The shuttle that docked with the Defiant was as strange as the Spectre itself. Sleek, black, and nearly invisible to sensors. When the airlock opened, a team of medical personnel and engineers emerged, moving with practiced efficiency to aid the wounded and assess damage. They wore the same black uniforms as Commander Reeves, but their equipment was like nothing Ilara had ever seen. Compact devices that sealed wounds and stabilized injuries in seconds rather than hours. Captain Chen, a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair, approached. "I'm Dr. Isabel Kearns, Chief Medical Officer of the Spectre. Commander Reeves sent me to escort you once we've stabilized your critical cases." As Kearns' team worked, Ilara watched in amazement. Their medical technology seemed decades beyond current Earth capabilities. Injuries that would normally require surgery were healed with handheld devices emitting soft blue light. Engineers applied patches to damaged hull sections that seemed to bond at the molecular level. "Your technology," Ilara said quietly to Kearns. "It's not standard Earth medical equipment." "No," Kearns replied simply. "It's not." An hour later, with the Defiant secured and Lieutenant Commander Tanaka temporarily in command, Ilara boarded the shuttle with Dr. Kearns. Inside, it was larger than it appeared from the outside, with comfortable seating and walls that seemed to shimmer slightly, as if not entirely solid. "Our hull materials adapt to space-time fluctuations," Kearns explained, noticing Ilara's curious gaze. "It allows for smoother transitions when we travel." "Travel? You mean jump or use FTL?" "Not exactly." Kearns offered no further explanation. The journey to the Spectre took less than a minute, though the distance should have required at least 10. The shuttle didn't dock. It simply phased through the larger ship's hull, as if passing through water. Commander Reeves was waiting for them in a sparse, elegant room that seemed to function as both a conference room and ready room. As before, he wore no rank insignia, but his bearing left no doubt about his authority. "Captain Chen," he extended his hand. "Welcome aboard the Spectre." "Thank you for the rescue, Commander," Ilara replied, shaking his hand. "Though I have a feeling that Commander is not your actual rank." A smile flickered across Reeves' face, perceptive. "But we abandoned conventional rank structures on this ship. Too politically complicated. Politically complicated. Please, sit." Reeves gestured to a chair that seemed to grow from the floor itself. As Ilara sat, a display appeared on the wall, showing the status of all 3 Earth ships and the Arcturus colony. The Krelian fleet had completely withdrawn from the system. I imagine you have questions, Reeves said, taking a seat across from her. About 1,000, Ilara admitted. What is this ship? Where did it come from? Why all the secrecy? Reeves leaned back. Which question would you like me to answer first? Let's start with the basics. Is this really an Earth ship? Yes and no, Reeves replied. It was built by humans, using human designs as a starting point. But the technology, he gestured around them, that came from somewhere else. Alien technology. Ilara's eyes widened. But we've only encountered the Kralians and Narvidians. Reeves shook his head. That's what most people believe. What most are allowed to believe. But 15 years ago, before either of those species, Earth made first contact with another race. We called them the Architects. What happened to them? Why wasn't this made public? The meeting was kept secret by agreement of all Earth governments. The Architects didn't want open contact. They were cautious after seeing what happened to other civilizations that revealed themselves too openly to younger species. Ilara frowned. So these Architects just gave us their technology? Not exactly, Reeves said. A research vessel with a crew of 4 crashed in the Arctic Circle. By the time we found them, 3 were already dead. The 4th survived only long enough to grant us access to their ship's database. A parting gift, she called it. He stood and walked to the wall, which shimmered at his touch, becoming a window that looked out into space. The stars seemed closer, brighter somehow. The Architects were explorers, not warriors. But their technology was centuries beyond ours. The database contained scientific knowledge that would have taken us thousands of years to discover on our own. And we used it to build a warship, Ilara said, a note of disappointment in her voice. Reeves turned to her. We used it to protect ourselves. 3 years after the Architects, the Kralians arrived. They weren't interested in peaceful contact. They wanted resources, territory, slaves. So the United Earth government built the Spectre in secret, using alien technology. Yes, Reeves nodded. Even now, we've only scratched the surface of the Architects' knowledge. This ship has been operational for 6 years, appearing only when absolutely necessary. To maintain the myth, Ilara said, understanding now, to make the Kralians fear something they couldn't explain. Exactly. Fear is a powerful weapon. The Spectre appears, destroys enemy ships with ease, then vanishes. The story spread. The fear grows. Ilara considered this. But why keep it secret from your own people? From officers like me? Reeves sighed deeply. Politics. Fear. Some leaders worried that if knowledge of the Architects and their technology became public, it would cause panic or religious upheaval. Others wanted to keep the technology for themselves, for their nations alone. That's why there are no national markings on your uniforms, Ilara realized. No country flags, no ranks. We're the first truly international crew, scientists, engineers, and soldiers from every nation on Earth. We abandoned our old identities to serve on this ship. The wall shimmered again, displaying schematics of the Spectre alongside tactical data from the recent battle. There's something else you need to understand, Captain, Reeves said, his expression growing serious. The Spectre has limitations, severe ones. What kind of limitations? The phase drive, what allows us to appear and disappear, puts enormous strain on the ship's systems and on the crew. Each jump requires massive energy and precise calculations. We can only perform 3, maybe 4 operations before needing to return to our hidden base for repairs and recovery. Ilara frowned. That explains why you don't intervene more often. Exactly. We can only be in so many places. We have to choose our battles carefully. Situations where our intervention will have the most strategic impact. And the crew. You mentioned strain on the crew. Reeves' face darkened. The phase technology affects human physiology. Extended exposure causes changes, cellular instability. We've lost good people, Captain. My God, Ilara whispered. You're sacrificing yourselves. We volunteered, Reeves said simply. Everyone aboard knew the risks. He moved to a console, bringing up new tactical displays. That's why I wanted to speak with you personally. The Kralians are planning something big. We've detected massive fleet movements near the Procyon sector. The Spectre will be there, but we'll need conventional forces as well. You want the Defiant to join you. Your ship has the newest weapons and shield systems in the fleet. With emergency repairs from our engineers, you'll be combat ready within 12 hours. Together, we might be able to stop whatever the Kralians are planning. Ilara studied Reeves closely. Despite his composed exterior, she could see subtle signs of strain. Micro tremors in his hands, a faint flicker in his left eye that wasn't quite natural. How long have you been aboard the Spectre, Commander? Since the beginning. 6 years, 2 months, 17 days. And the cellular instability you mentioned. Reeves held her gaze. Advanced. I have perhaps 6 months before complete neural degradation begins. The revelation hung in the air between them. I'll need to brief my senior officers, Ilara said finally. They deserve to know what they're fighting for. And with. Of course. But discretion, Captain. The existence of the architects and the origin of our technology must remain classified. Understood. Ilara stood. When do we depart for Procyon? 600 hours. The Kralian command ship will be there, coordinating their next major offensive. If we can destroy it, we might set them back months, possibly years. As Ilara prepared to return to the Defiant, Reeves handed her a small device similar to the quantum communicator she had used earlier. A direct link to the Spectre, he explained. No matter where we are in space, we'll hear you. Let's hope I won't need to use it again, Ilara said. Reeves smiled, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. Hope is good, Captain, but preparation is better. The battle at Procyon would become legendary in the annals of the Earth-Kralian War. The Spectre and the Defiant, fighting side by side against a Kralian armada twice the size of the one at Arcturus. The stories would tell of how Captain Chen executed a daring attack run that allowed the Spectre to deliver the killing blow to the Kralian command ship. They would speak of how Commander Reeves used the last of his ship's phase energy to absorb a devastating blast meant for the colony. What the stories wouldn't mention was the price paid by the crew of the ghost ship. How each phasing operation accelerated their cellular decay. How Commander Reeves stood at his post even as his body began to fail, directing the battle with unwavering resolve until the very end. 3 weeks after Procyon, Captain Ilara Chen was summoned to a classified meeting at Earth Fleet Headquarters. Admiral Harrison, head of strategic operations, presented her with new orders and a data crystal containing technical specifications beyond anything she had seen before, except aboard the Spectre. Project Phoenix, the Admiral explained. The next generation of Earth defense. And you, Captain Chen, will command the first vessel. What about the Spectre? She asked. Commander Reeves. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. The Spectre completed its final mission at Procyon. Commander Reeves and his crew knew the risks. Their sacrifice won't be forgotten. Ilara looked down at the crystal in her hand. This technology, it's from the architects. Yes, refined and adapted by our scientists, based on data from the Spectre. The phase drive has been modified to minimize biological impact on the crew. The Spectre proved the concept. Phoenix will perfect it. Later, alone in her quarters, Ilara activated her personal terminal and accessed the classified files on the Spectre's crew. One by one, she memorized their faces, their names, their stories. The ones who had sacrificed everything so that others might live. The ones who made the myth real. She picked up the quantum communicator Reeves had given her. Its light had gone dark, but she kept it as a reminder. Some legends, she had learned, were worth believing in.